Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by SoundWeb Studios and brought to you by our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson's The Missing, available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. We're here with a terrific gentleman who is a 35+ year nationally acclaimed game show host, creativity coach, and producer. Began his career as, get this, you might want to write this down, by the way, professional juggler, magician, fire eater, and later as a radio music talk show host, TV sportscaster, associate editor of the Guinness Book of World Records. And I don't know if we're going to have any records tonight, but we'll find out on that. He was also a popular MC in the 70s and a speechwriter for major clients, and also the game show host of the very popular Give Me a Hint. And is this guy giving hints? Well, he's got a book out there, maybe give some hints. It's called Consolidated Wisdom. And what's that about? We'll find out just 1 minute. Live, ladies and gentlemen, at Plus Studios in beautiful downtown New York, the amazing 35-year nationally acclaimed game show host, creativity coach, producer, and the author of the book, Consolidated Wisdom, the ultimate book of quotations for success, happiness, and health. Ladies and gentlemen, the multi-talented Gene Jones. Gene, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it's great to have you on board, Gene. So you're a 35-year plus nationally acclaimed game show host, creativity coach, and producer. You began a career as a professional juggler, magician, fire eater. Later became a radio music talk show host, TV sportscaster, and also associate editor of the Guinness Book of World Records. You're a popular MC in the 70s, and you also speech writer for major clients. And you have a new book which basically features more than 1,500 reform phrases from multiple millennia through all civilization history, featuring thousands of provoking quotes and diverse, brilliant minds, and basically a beacon of positivity in a very chaotic world. The book is called Consolidated Wisdom, the ultimate book of quotations for success, happiness, and health. Before getting all that, Gene, tell us how you first got started.
Well, it actually really started with the radio. I really found out early in my life during college that I loved blues music.
Oh, nice.
So one day I went down to the local radio station and said, nobody's doing a blues music show. I'd like to do one. And they gave me a 3-hour time slot every Tuesday night. And it was Gene's Blues Show. And that's where it all started. And I started not only playing the music, but talking about the blues music, about the artists. And pretty soon I got noticed by the promoter of blues concerts that used to come through Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is where I was.
Mhm.
And he made a deal with me that I could get exclusive interviews with all the blues musicians if I would MC the concerts.
Wow, that's interesting. And who are some of your favorite blues musicians growing up?
Well, B.B. King was the number one. I always try to copy him because I was also a blues player at that time.
Hmm.
But also Albert King, and then some not as well-known people like Buddy Guy, great guitar player, played with Junior Wells, a harmonica player. Paul Butterfield, his blues band featured a lot of great players such as Mike Bloomfield and Elvin Bishop. So there were a lot of them that were really great. And then I became actually friends and the manager of Luther Allison
Oh,
for a number of
wow.
years.
Oh my gosh. And then another name that came up as well, Coco Taylor.
Yes, Coco Taylor. There were a lot of great blues players in the 70s. Unfortunately, a lot of them got old and passed away, but they really set the stage for the blues music of today.
That is interesting. And who are some other favorite artists, singers, and songwriters growing up?
Boy, there's a lot. You know, when I think about it, it goes all the way back to Elvis Presley because I do go back to those days. But the Beatles were huge. I would say also the Cream, which was a great music group in those days. There were a lot of groups in those days that were really great. Pink Floyd.
Hmm.
I got to MC for the Grateful Dead and
Nice.
Jefferson Airplane, number of different groups, and James Taylor as well.
Now, was this all in the Ann Arbor area? You did some MC?
Yes, yes. I stayed there for about 6 years after I graduated from college and got very involved in the music scene.
Oh, wow. Okay. And who else did you MC for in that area?
Well, all those people that I just mentioned, actually. Um, I can't remember every single one of them right now, but I did get to MC the whole or most of the Ann Arbor Blues and Jazz Festival in 1974. So that was B.B. King, it was James Brown. There were a lot of people on that particular show.
hmm And he also proceeded to do some other things as well too. What are some other things he's done? We'll find out with Gene Jones in just a minute. Also with his book Consolidate Wisdom. But first, listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by SonicWeb Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Looking at a professional website without breaking your budget. SonicWeb Studios is the answer. SonicWeb Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960, or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, time to give an official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you'll love Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, 1 target, where truth is illusion and those you love be the first go missing. It's available on Amazon and paperback and ebook. Missing by Mia Molson-Zia has garnered great reviews and even endorsed by Howard celebrities, including Joanna Cassie, Forbes, Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today for Girls Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon. Also, check out the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com and over 40 podcast platforms. Heard in 100 countries, including Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, also Apple Music, Odyssey. Subscribe to us on BitChute, Rumble, YouTube as well. Follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and more. And take us with you on any mobile device. And for great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. T-shirts, pop sockets, throw pillows, tote bags, hoodies. Makes great gifts 24/7. Go to Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. And for more great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia for great books like Missing, Once, and Wrinkles. Also t-shirts, pop sockets, hoodies, phone cases, and more. Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia. Check it out today. And support the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, PayPal, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. You're here with the multi-talented, nationally acclaimed game show host, creativity coach, producer, and radio TV talk show host, Gene Jones, here on the Mike Wagner Show. Also, author of the book Consolidate Wisdom, the ultimate book of quotations for success, happiness, and health. And before we get to your books and some of your careers, and you've been in Ann Arbor for quite some time, who are some of your favorite, radio personalities, DJs, and everything else growing up?
Well, first of all, I have to say I'm impressed with your merchandise.
Well, feel free to buy one as well, too. Just go to Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia. You can
Ah,
check it out. So, in fact, you can do it right now if you can multitask, get your assistant to do that. It's like, hey, I want to order some merchandise while you talk about your book. So, I mean, multitasking can be done.
and can I hold up my book too?
Of course. Yes. So,
Here we go. There's my book.
ooh, I'm going to challenge you on this one. Well, I'll have a book of my own one day, so we can talk more about that before we get to your book as well. I mean, you've been doing radio for quite some time, and before we got into that, you've been what, a professional juggler, magician, and a fire eater, sportscaster, and associate editor of Guinness Book of World Records. Tell us more about those.
Okay, well, where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the Fire Eater or the Guinness Book of Records?
Let's see. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Catch the target by the toe. If he hollers, let's see. I'll go like this.
Whatever your audience, you think
Professional
your
juggler.
audience
How's that?
juggler. Well, what happened was I got hired to produce some mini concerts at the University of Michigan, and I was doing rock acts, and it would be 2 rock acts on each show. And I had, in my day, was big fan of the Ted Mack Amateur Hour, which
Ooh.
is kind of like the talent shows we see now, where they had all kinds of variety artists. So I decided to replicate that while we were changing equipment at the rock shows. And I was putting an ad in the paper to get talent when in walks this fellow who says he has an international vaudeville show, and he was looking for their first American job. They had just come in from Europe.
Hmm.
So I said, wow, I think I'll put them on instead of going out for a local talent. So that show went really well, and we became friendly, and they asked me to become their business manager, and they
Hmm.
took me to Europe, where they taught me to juggle while we were doing street theater in Amsterdam.
I
And then
like that.
we came back to the United States one night. A couple of them knocked on my door and said, "We're going to teach you to eat fire tonight." And I looked at them and I said, "Wait, I'm your business manager. I'm your booking agent. What are you doing?" And they said, "No, no. If you're going to promote us, you have to be able to do the things we do to demonstrate at conventions." So they took me out in the street and taught me to eat fire.
Oh.
And lo and behold, people were screaming out their windows while we stood in the street and blew fire. And that started my career as a fire eater, but I used to go to these conventions and represent the troop until one day an agent passed by one of our booths and said, well, why don't I just hire you instead of the whole troop? And I tried to argue with him. And he said, no, no, I want to hire you. So he booked me at Bowling Green University and I did a show there and it made the front page of the paper. So
Wow.
I mailed the picture to the agent and lo and behold, the next fall I had a tour. So all of a sudden I was on the road and I had to figure out, how to be an entertainer on the road, which I did for 5 years.
Oh my goodness. And I guess the question everybody comes to mind is like, what are some of the tricks to fire eating as well? Not just stick it down there. It's like, what are some of the tricks and what basically it's just like, I kind of like to do it. It's like, how is it done? That's what I wondered.
Well, really, certain things are tricks, certain things are skills, and certain things are ways of doing things. So it's a combination of the three. It's not really a trick, but in a way it is. You have to know the principles of fire. For instance, fire burns up. So you never bend your head down when you put fire in your mouth. You bend your head back so it burns out of your mouth.
Oh,
And the way to do it is you almost extinguish it in your mouth, but you don't quite extinguish it in your mouth. So when you bring the fire back out of your mouth, it reignites. And then to make the big flames come out of your mouth, you have to put some kind of flammable fluid in your mouth, which is not really healthy. And
oh.
then you have to know how to spray it in a particular way onto the fire torch so it illuminates and grows into a big billow of flames.
Oh my goodness. I'll
So
have
I
to
combined that with some modern dance to come up with a 5 minute modern dance fire act. And I used to get hired to open for some of the major rock acts. In fact, I taught Gene Simmons of Kiss how to eat fire one night when I was emceeing one of his concerts.
really. So you're the one that taught Gene Simmons how to eat fire, and he's using it in concerts. I did not know that.
Well, that was way back, probably in 1975, I would guess.
Hmm.
It was in Flint, Michigan. I was hired to MC a concert with Kiss and the New York Dolls, two up and coming acts at that time. They were not that well known. And I used to always do my rehearsal before the bands came out just to make sure I knew where all the wires, because in those days everything was wired, not, wireless. So I had to make sure I didn't trip on anything. And they saw my rehearsal. They were already in their makeup. I had no idea who they were. And this fellow comes up to me and says, can you teach us how to do that? And I said, sure. So he pulled out a $50 bill and we went out back of the theater and I taught him and his team of people how to eat fire.
How you like that? And for those out there, you can try or not try this at home. It's like we're not going to hold responsible. So
It's
if something
dangerous.
happens, please don't sue us. Okay. So
It's
just be
dangerous. In fact,
right.
people used to ask me to teach them, and I taught people a few times, but then I realized they didn't always obey the rules that you have to follow to be safe. So I stopped teaching. I just talk about it when people ask.
Now, do you do that when you're juggling as well too? Fire eat while you're juggling?
Well, you don't do both at the same time, but it was
I just
part
want
of
to check on that.
Yeah, I did a variety act for a number of years on the road, which included all those different skills. I used to juggle fire torches as well, but no, I didn't do them at the same time. That would be quite dangerous.
And later you went from professional juggler, magician, fire eater, and everything else. And you've been a radio talk show host, a TV sportscaster. You also did that. Tell us more about that.
Well, I did them all kind of simultaneously. It was hard to coordinate it all, but when I was in town during the basketball season, which I usually made sure to be there for the home games, I was the TV sportscaster, the color commentator for University of Michigan basketball on cable TV for 3 seasons.
Okay. And plus, you also have been an associate editor of Guinness Book of World Records and, a bit about that. How'd you get on the Guinness Book of World Records? I mean,
Well,
not to set anything.
that came later. I became president of the International Jugglers Association in the early 1980s. And during that time, the jugglers who were really good used to try and submit to get a Guinness record, but they never heard back from the Guinness book. So they complained all the time to me, why can't we get in the book? So I took it upon myself to call the Guinness book and try and see if I could get some juggling records established in the book. And I was surprised that the CEO of Sterling Publications that published the American version took my call and arranged to meet me and told me he really wanted to do more records on juggling, but he didn't have criteria. So he asked me to put together the criteria for juggling. and he
Hmm.
liked what I did. So he started asking me to judge other records. And pretty soon he was sending me out for TV shows and other kinds of appearances as a spokesperson for the Guinness Book.
Mhm.
And then they made me the associate editor after that.
And what was the most famous record that you were part of when it came to Guinness Book of World Records for juggling? What was the most famous one or the most fascinating?
Well, I'd say it's probably both famous and fascinating. It was the most bees on a face.
Bees on a face. Oh,
Yeah.
that takes a sting out of everything. Oh my goodness.
Yes, well, you might find this interesting. So the situation was that I was flown out to Detroit for the ABC television daytime show to judge this record. And when I got there, they said, "Don't worry, it'll be better this time." So I said, "Well, what do you mean this time?" He said, "Well, last time the guy was not in a cage and the bees went crazy in the studio because of the air conditioning and attacked the audience,
Oh
and we
my
all had to
goodness.
evacuate." I said, "Oh, so he's in a cage this time?" They said, "Yes." I said, "Good." And so that was it. He wore a queen bee on his chin that attracts all the bees. And at a certain point in time, they released the swarm of bees and they all went to his face because they wanted to be near the queen.
Hmm. That is rather interesting. How about some other unusual ones you encountered?
Well, there was a cigar box balancing on your chin. Also, there was pogo stick juggling. There was noodle slicing. There was all kinds of unusual records. And the interesting thing about the Guinness Book is a lot of the people that try to set records really aren't famous people, or they're everyday people. One was a truck driver who used to drive onions across the country, but he happened to have this one special skill. And I really enjoyed running into people at that special time of their life where they were trying to be extraordinary.
How do you like that? And I still remember the person with the longest fingernails in the world.
And they were very long. I remember that.
Certainly indeed as well, too. And of course, your love for TV, radio, and everything else, being in Guinness Book of World Records. It also transpired you became a game host later called Give Me a Hint, and tell us more about that.
Well, it's a Give Me a Hint trivia game show. And that actually came out of being with the Guinness Book in a way. I was in New York at that time, and I was running my own company called Royal Production Services. We produced special events for corporations and private individuals. And one of my clients saw on my resume that I worked for the Guinness Book. So he asked me if I could create and host a game show for him. And I said, sure. And when I did that, it really went over quite well. And the next week, I got 5 or 6 calls right away the first day back in
Wow.
the office. So I started booking myself out as a game show host. And eventually, I found that when an audience was stumped, I would start to give them the answer. They said, wait, 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 don't give us the answer. Give me a hint. So I named the show the Give Me a Hint Trivia Game Show. And because I'm an improvisationally trained actor, it was very easy to make up hints to help the audience solve the question.
hmm and I think that's been on TV for quite some time as well, too. And maybe some of your other accomplishments as well, too, before becoming an author.
Well, the game show I actually did live most of the time. When I was on TV, I was the guest of somebody that had their own show. For instance, I was on the Martha Stewart show one time. It was when Barack Obama was being inaugurated. She wanted to do a show based on presidential trivia, not about Barack Obama, but just in honor of the idea of inaugurations and presidency. So she had me script and then come in and perform a trivia game show based on presidential trivia. And then
Hmm.
I've been on numerous other TV shows, scripting and hosting segments.
How do you like that? And maybe you can just give a trivia question out there. Let's see if I can answer it or somebody can answer it. So,
Well, why don't we try it this way? Because the game show, and I'll explain how the book came about because it ties into the game show. The, the book, which is 1,500 of the best quotes of the last 5,000 years, comes from the game show where I used to like to use quotes as part of the game show. And so I'll ask you the first game show host trivia question that was a quote, which is, who said one man with courage makes a majority? And I'll give you a hint. It was an ex-president of the United States from the 19th century.
19th century. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Let's see. Would that be early, mid, late? Let's see.
So now you can also say to me, give me a hint.
Okay. Okay. Give me a hint. Is it
And then
early?
I have to give you another hint. See,
Okay.
that's how it works till you get it. So there was a famous singer, dancer, songwriter in the 1980s and 90s who had the same last name.
Oh, Jackson, Andrew Jackson.
There you go. So see, you would have won a cash payout for answering the right answer. So that's how the game show works.
Oh my gosh. I could use the money, except we can't reach out like this, though.
Make it an IOU for when we meet.
Okay, that sounds great.
If we
And
meet in person.
that sounds great. We can do that. And we'll do it through the book as well. Consolidated Wisdom, the ultimate book of quotations for success, happiness, and health. And more on that in just a minute, 1 minute with amazing Gene Jones. Listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios, and brought to you by our official sponsor, the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Wilson's They're Missing. We'll be back with the multi-talented Gene S. Jones after this time out. We're back with the multi-talented Gene S. Jones. He's got the book called Consolidated Wisdom, the ultimate book of quotations for success, happiness, and health here on the Mike Wagner Show. The host of Give Me a Hint. He was also sportscaster, talk show host, professional juggler, and everything. And this all comes together in the book. And if you want to show it to us, a bit more about it as well, the book Consolidated Wisdom.
Well, this book came about, as I said, what happened was using quotes in the game show, I never realized as the years went on how big a library of quotes I was accumulating. During the pandemic, when couldn't go out and do the shows because of the pandemic and the restrictions, I started looking over that file and realized these are quotes that I should share with the world. But at the time, I didn't have enough to make a book, so I started doing research about the people who wrote the quotes. I started looking for more quotes from all different sources. And when I say all different sources, the internet, I read over 100 books. I even started studying tea bags because I drink tea every day, and there's always a quote on every tea bag that I drink. And
Really?
everywhere I could find possible quotes, I started searching for them. There's your cup of tea.
Wait, you know something? I haven't found it yet. It's giving me a clear answer right now, but nothing written in stone yet. Maybe this will give me an answer.
There you go. So anyway, what happened was this became the most enriching 3.5 year odyssey of my life because I started to learn not only about the people who wrote the quotes, but the times they lived in. And then I started to realize that a lot of the quotes from many years ago were talking about the same things that people are talking about now. So I started to see how connected and how really similar human nature has been all through time. So I went all the way back to 2900 BC. That's where the first quote in the book starts.
Oh, wow.
And the interesting thing about that first quote is that person talks about the wisdom of the ancients, which means he was alluding to wisdom from cultures before the recorded time. So it's a very interesting idea that mankind, humanity, has been dealing with similar issues for thousands of years.
And
It's just how we deal with them that changes, but the issues themselves stay the same.
And what was that quote that was quoted in 2900 BC, and who quoted it?
Well, it goes way back. And to tell you the truth, I don't have that exact quote. I don't memorize all these quotes. It's too many quotes to memorize. But if you do pick up the book, there is a quote there from 2900 BC by Fu Si. His name is spelled Fu and then HSI.
Who see?
Yeah, it's 2 words. So I do know who said it. I just don't remember the exact quote. Basically, what I remember most is the gist of the quotes, because a lot of the words really, the specific words aren't what's so important as the thought that goes into it, because it really helps us understand each other as well as our own selves. And one of the great quotes in the book actually is by Elon Musk, who, before he became kind of controversial as he is now, said that people have the ability, ordinary people have the ability to become extraordinary. And that ties into the Guinness Book, like I was saying about how ordinary people find some way to become extraordinary. And anyone can do that if they focus enough on something special.
And I think I heard that from somewhere. I don't know if it's like Elon Musk or somewhere around there. And I think that's somewhere along those lines. And I'm trying to think of another quote as well too. And right now it's kind of blanking right now. Maybe a little hint can do and
Well, let
everything
me help
else.
you a little bit
Okay.
because in my book, I actually focus on that kind of an idea because, as I said, the same ideas have been reiterated over time. So there are sections in the book in each chapter called Great Minds Think Alike, where I actually have quotes from different people in different eras talking about the same issue.
Hmm. That is rather interesting. And I think, of course, the one I could think of is like to be or not to be. That is a question.
That's right. And Shakespeare's in my book too.
Okay. And of
Yeah,
course,
but one of the great quotes also that I really like in the book, and there's a couple of them with the same idea, is by Mark Twain, where he says, "The great ones make you too, us too, feel that we can become great." So
hmm.
helping people find their inner greatness is one of the great goals of this book.
And I remember Ronald Reagan gave some really good quotes back in the day too, in the early presidency when they're going through a turbulent time, and then managed to get out of it. I think 84 was it 86? I think he served what was it 4 years, 8 years, somewhere around there.
Eight
And,
years from 1980 to 1988 as president.
right, yeah, and I
And
and
he's
I
in the
think
book. He's in
hmm
my book. He had a couple of really good quotes that I put in the book,
okay.
mostly about government.
Yeah, well, what was it one about government? I think you said something about it too. That what was it? Oh, what was it? Oh gosh, I can't think right now. So something to do about government where it's like if government gets too big or something like that. I think we'll probably figure that out later on.
Well, I stay away from anything that would be political, but observations about government and what the goal of government should be, those things everyone agrees on. What people don't agree on is how to do that. So I stay out of the how to because I really don't want to be branded as having an opinion one way or the other. I think that the pure thinking about ideally what government could be and how good it could be for people and the social values that could really help us all. Those are the things that I focus on in that particular chapter
Mhm.
because the
And
book is arranged by subject.
okay, and what do you think the funny? And what would you say the funniest quote that you got out of the book as well?
Well, there's a whole chapter on humor, by the way, and I focus on Yogi Berra. Not he's not the only one, but I actually give him a whole page in the book because in my game show, of all the quotes I ever used, the quotes that everybody knew and loved and reacted to the most favorably were Yogi Berra quotes. Things like "It got late early," because to tell you the truth, my wife and I use that all the time because a lot of times it does. It gets late early. And all of a sudden you go, wow, we're running out of time. We got to do this right away.
Or something about losing as well too. I think there was another quote on that one. So
Well, the idea of losing as an educational process, as opposed to whether you should be upset or not upset, that there's, one of the things about life is there's silver linings in all things. You don't want to lose, but if you lose, to lose with grace and to learn from your losses. It also, and this is the interesting thing, a lot of the different subjects relate to each other. So you could take that as a sports wisdom quote that applies to business because Henry Ford talks about failing and how failing was one of the great educational experiences that you can have because it teaches you what not to do and it also teaches you you have to do something else.
you mentioned about Henry Ford. This is the one quote I thought was funny. You can buy the Model T in any color you want as long as it's black.
That's right.
Oh, it just
And he
made me.
stood by that.
Right. And of course, you see all black cars out there. And of course, getting back to sports, this one quote did come to mind. I grew up watching the Green Bay Packers, back in the day too. And Vince Lombardi had the best quote: winning isn't everything, it's the only thing.
Well, there's about 3 or 4 quotes by Vince Lombardi in the book. One of them is about leadership, actually, as well. So, yes, he had a lot of good quotes, and his greatest attribute was his ability to motivate other people.
And certainly did as well too. And of course, you can also get the book Consolidated Wisdom, the ultimate book of quotations for success, happiness, and health. And you also wrote a book called Younger and Wiser: Peaceful Words for a Troubled World. That was out there.
Yes, well, that's a very different book. That was written during my time on the road before I moved to New York and started being a game show host and starting my own production company. But while I was on the road, I used to write poetry. And I wrote poetry when I was in Amsterdam and England and France and Hawaii and the West Coast and the Caribbean, all different places. And so what I thought would be interesting is not just a book of poetry, but a book of poetries with backstories. So every poem that I wrote had a backstory telling where I was and what the situation was that inspired me to write whatever I wrote. And the idea behind the whole book, Younger and Wiser, in the title, is combining the energy of youth with the wisdom of the elderly. And to me, the fact that elders are not honored and utilized properly in this society is really a pity. And that's something that tribal cultures, such as Native Americans and tribal cultures all over the world, honor their elders and really get a lot of wisdom from their experience. So that's where the title Younger and Wiser came from.
And I think people need to learn that as well too. And what else you want people to get from your book, Consolidated Wisdom?
Well, consolidated wisdom, the idea is that if you put more wisdom in your life, you can make better decisions. And if you make better decisions, you can live a happier, more fulfilling life. And so at the end of the book, because I not only have quotes in the book, but I also do a commentary at the end of each chapter where I discuss one of the particular aspects of that chapter. But the last chapter in the book is called Wisdom Meditations. And I actually introduce a whole way of using wisdom quotes from the book to solve individual problems and challenges. So people can experiment with what I call my auto brainstorm technique of using wisdom quotes to enhance their own decision making powers.
And also, indeed, they say great minds think alike. I'm sure that's one of the biggest quotes. And of course, you agree with that being in line as well.
Yes, well, as I say, great minds think alike is a repeating theme in every chapter where I take people from different eras and different countries from around the world because when I added it up, there were representatives of 57 countries in my book, and there were people from every century starting with 2900 BC. So there's a great cross section of different styles, cultures, and all those things, all looking at life from a very connected way that kind of plays out in the book.
And what's that one quote that currently applies to you?
The quote that applies to me, wow, I don't know. I would have to say that really Leonardo da Vinci said, I never get tired of being useful.
Let that one sink in, guys. I'll tell you that. Just let that one sink in. I mean, me included, I got to say that. So,
Yeah, there's another quote that I really like by Martin Luther King Jr., and I'll give you the gist of it. But he talks about how if a man is a street sweeper, he should sweep the streets like Michelangelo made a sculpture. In other words, and it goes on. But the whole idea is whatever you do in life, do it really well. Take pride in what you do and love what you do. And if you do, your life will be exceptional.
and let that one sink in, guys. So, no slacking off. So, let that one sink in, guys. And also, maybe just another quote as well, too, and show the book Consolidated Wisdom as well.
Well, here's the cover of the book, which I really enjoyed working with the artist who did this book. And the other idea of this book is that if people are going to give a speech of their own, if a college student is writing a term paper, if somebody is honoring someone and wants to come up with a good quote, these quotes can really be very useful in a lot of practical ways as well. And there's a chapter which is something dear to my heart because I'm a creativity coach. I do a whole chapter on creativity and the whole idea of using your creativity and your wisdom together.
That is certainly amazing. I'm loving this. And where can we find your book at, Gene?
Well, it's on all platforms. It's on Amazon. It's on barnesandnoble.com. It's on Apple iBooks. Um, Pretty much anywhere books are sold.
All right. Well, certainly check that out with author Gene Jones of Consolidated Wisdom, the ultimate book of quotations for success, happiness, and health here on the Mike Wagner Show. And just a few more things, Gene. What else can we expect from you 2024 and beyond?
Well, I'm actually, this book, Consolidated Wisdom features the wisdom quotes of the greatest minds in history. My next quote will be my own original wisdom quotes that I've accumulated over the last 40 years.
And we'll certainly check that out as well, too, Gene. And who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
Well, to me, my guiding light has always been Leonardo da Vinci. And as an entertainer, when I did my game show, I always felt I was a combination of Monty Hall from
Oh, I
Let's
love
Make
Monty
a Deal
Hall. Hmm.
and Art Linkletter from People Say the Darndest Things and People Are Funny,
Hmm.
and Johnny Carson, who was just a brilliant improvisational comedian. So I tried to merge those three into my hosting of the game show.
Hmm. And you certainly do a great job of that, Gene. And what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
Well, I think really finding your inner greatness and loving what you do.
And certainly agreed as well. Once again with the multi-talented Gene Jones of Consolidated Wisdom, the ultimate book of quotations for success, happiness, and health here on the Mike Wagner Show. Gene, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic. Learned a lot from you. Looking forward to having you again soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. We'd love to have you back. Once again, what's your website? How do people contact you? Where can people purchase or check out your books?
Well, the website is genejoneswisdom.com. They can actually purchase the book through the website. It'll link them right to Amazon, or they can go to Amazon, iBooks, barnesandnoble.com, anywhere books are sold online.
And once again, what's the website?
genejoneswisdom.com.
All right. We want everybody to check that out. Once again, Gene, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely amazing. Looking forward to having you again soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. We'd love to have you back. We wish you all the best. And Gene, you definitely have a great future ahead of you.
Thank you so much.